Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of the Self-Detective Club. Please make yourself at home, if home is where you'd like this to be. I'm trying to keep things fresh when it comes to explaining the aims of this podcast. So how about this? We are the ones that we've been waiting for. Or this? The aspirations of the Self-Detective Club is wellness through self-awareness, wellness through self-directed knowledge, wellness through self-empowerment and self-determination, wellness through mutual aid and cooperation with the sharing of thoughts, ideas and experiences. Or how about this from Oscar Wilde? The aim of life is self-development, to realize one's nature perfectly. This is what each of us is here for. People are afraid of themselves nowadays. They have forgotten the highest of all duties, the duty that one owes to oneself. Of course they are charitable, they feed the hungry and clothe the beggar, but their souls starve and are naked. Or maybe it's easy just to say, there is one person you'll be spending the rest of your life with, so maybe now is a good time to get to know yourself. So let's don our very own self-detective hats, let's polish up our magnifying glasses and seek out the jewels, the clues, the threads that are going to help enhance the quality of our life, individually and collectively. Upsimumase, what a lovely load of words. And now we have another word to explore in today's session. So let me ask you from the off, dear listener, what does the word nurturing mean to you? Nurturing. Is it the direct opposite of hostilities, which we looked at last time? Or is it of its own? Having just had a quick search engine check, the opposite of hostility could be friendly, mild, while the opposite of nurturing is seen as neglect, hinder. Definitions in dictionaries seem to link nurturing with caring for, protecting, allowing someone to be able to grow and develop in a safe environment. But what about you? Does the word nail it for you as something to gravitate towards, as being an important feature of your wellness? Or do you have words or concepts that could be put to better use? I don't know about you, but if I want a word to be what I want it to be, I kind of extend it a little, turn it into the 12-inch version. I know this has the potential to make for confusion if I'm overworking a word too much, but then I feel like we don't have enough terms to express what it's like to be human, so I'm either going to adapt them or invent them. Like skudsi izai, which is a word only my daughter and I use, as far as I'm aware. I mean, in a parallel universe, everyone is saying it, but in this one, not so. By the way, there is a word called idioglossia, which kind of means making up your own idiosyncratic language. Lisa Gerrard, the lead singer of Dead Can Dance, does this with many of her songs. And staying with the label 4AD, with its own unique brand of ethereal and otherworldly sounds, Liz Fraser, formerly of the Cocteau Twins, seemed not only to use her voice as a musical instrument, but also as a way of conveying emotions through gibberish, otherwise known as glossolalia. I'm not sure if I've got that right. Anyway, in a religious context, I believe this is also known as speaking in tongues. Anyway, staying with music, nurturing music just a little longer, there is an album by the artist Virginia Astley called From Gardens Where We Feel Secure. If you listen to each track, there's nothing in them that's likely to shock or surprise you in any way. Alongside the instruments, the sounds you hear are reminiscent of a classic English country garden on a summer's day. The sound of a swinging, of birds chirping, church bells off in the distance, and so on. I wonder how many people have listened to this and their nervous systems have gone, "Ooh, thank you so much for that." As opposed to, say, the live in Minneapolis version of Dead Billy by Big Black, which seems to be saying to the listener, "I'm going to keep your alarm system triggered for as long as I can." At the time these very words are being uttered, the Self-Detective Club is still very much in its infancy. Yet I reckon it's going to be a lot easier for us to construct a lasting, nurturing culture now rather than later, because its identity is still to be realized, and because trying to remold a new environment from something that has become rigid and inflexible is going to take longer, take up more energy, and could well find resistance with people who just don't like change. As Frederick Douglass said, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. He was the guy who also stated, "Power concedes nothing without a demand," which is, perhaps, a mighty good reason for not giving anyone power in the first place, knowing what a drag it is having to constantly fight them all the time. So here's the thing. This club is a wellness-focused vessel, of that there is no doubt. Power over people isn't healthy. It isn't about wellness, whereas power with other people is egalitarianly beautiful. We know this. This is how it is. So knowing this, can we actively, dynamically create a nurturing space that spreads the power out to all respectful merry folk, while curbing the power, the oxygen, of those who seek to dominate? Now, I'm going to be careful here because I really don't want to be the one who unilaterally makes decisions on what is nurturing and what is hostile. But I think I can be the one who facilitates this discussion in part 2 of the show, and I can be someone who throws ideas up into the air and says, "These are not set in stone, but what do you think of them nonetheless?" Then, if people are invested enough in this space and the preservation of a nice cultural vibe, they will want to add their voices, and before we know it, we have a community, a climatic climax community, where we can achieve an equilibrium so long as we continue to buy into the collective culture. So this is what we're going to do in the second half of this episode. Get a lovely cohort of people from the Self-Detective Club and get them helping to start the process of constructing a framework for this club to exist within. And just to be clear, the reason we're taking the trouble to spend time on this is that without this knowing, how can we expect any of us to be grounded, to be safe and stable? I mean, most spaces outside of this bubble are authoritarian in nature, constructed on the whims of those who sit at the pinnacle of the pyramid. Since we are a flat hierarchy, we'll need to have something to fill the vacuum, something we can agree upon, so that we all know what is expected of us, so that we can all be in the game rather than forever wondering, forever second-guessing. Here's some suggestions. Equality. Equality, equality, equality. For sure, for sure, for sure. Equality cannot be achieved where there are spores of inequality. For that reason, I'm suggesting that we omit masters and gods from this club. Or more specifically, I'm suggesting it won't work if we have people/entities who are in the role of being a master or a god. That is to say, you can be a master or a god and be part of this club, so long as you aren't being a master or a god. I mean, how refreshing would it be to have a master come and join us with a willingness to share the same perch. How cool for a god to say, well, I might have created you all, but that doesn't mean to say I'm bigger or better than you. After all, mothers don't tend to say this to their offspring. So yeah, you can listen, you can say respectful things, but the minute you start talking about fire and damnation, nah. The same could be said for kings and queens, princes and princesses, viscounts and countesses. Whether you like it or not, you are a symbol of inequality. Perhaps if you want to be part of our culture, you could come incognito. And to be honest, personally, I'm really going to struggle if someone wants to be known that they have the title Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. I don't think that will sit very well with notions of universal wellness. Celebrities? Fine, come on down, but please come as you really are, not with some fake corporate whoring persona. But then I guess that could be opened up to all of us. Can we have a call out for less bullshit and more authenticity? More importantly, what do you think? And what do you think of this from Paulo Freire, from his book Pedagogy of the Oppressed? If I do not love the world, if I do not love life, if I do not love people, I cannot enter into dialogue. Men and women who lack humility or have lost it cannot come to the people, cannot be their partners in naming the world. Someone who cannot acknowledge himself to be as mortal as everyone else still has a long way to go before he can reach the point of encounter. At the point of encounter, there are neither utter ignoramuses nor perfect sages. There are only people who are attempting, together, to learn more than they now know. Ooh, wow. I think we might need a pause after that. Okay. What else? Let's now extend the theme of learning. Imagine existing in an environment where there isn't any right or wrong answers to questions. Wouldn't that be lush? Imagine that questions were being asked because people were interested to find out what other people thought. And the thoughts of other people didn't need to be correct. They could be a work in progress. They could be allowed to be rough drafts of thought, because how else do you change and progress in life if you are forever having to say the right thing all the time, for fear of getting something wrong, for fear of being mocked or chastised for saying something stupid? I think of this as a playground of ideas. You have your certainties on one side and your uncertainties on the other, but what about this grey area between the two poles? How often do we get a chance to explore our beliefs and our values, to find out what feels right for us and what doesn't? In this very present moment, I can't think of anything more satisfying than listening to someone explore something and then for them to say, at the end of it, I don't think I've said a word of truth, but I feel like I'm getting closer. A playground of ideas for playful people in a nice, safe, nurturing space. In her memoir, The Cost of Living, Deborah Levy opens by recounting a conversation she overhears, struck up between two strangers, a young woman and a middle-aged man, at a bar. He talks first, funnily enough. Then she spoke about a scuba dive and how she had been underwater for 20 minutes and then surfaced to find there was a storm. The sea had become a whirlpool and she had been anxious about making it back to the boat. Listening to the conversation, the author saw a hint that there might have been a raw wound within the telling, perhaps concerning a person on the boat not coming to the young woman's rescue. And the middle-aged man's response to this story? He said, "You talk a lot, don't you?" Opening up chapter 2, Levi writes, "Everything was calm, the sun was shining, I was swimming in the deep. And then, when I surfaced 20 years later, I discovered there was a storm. At first I wasn't sure I'd make it back to the boat, and then I realized I didn't want to make it back to the boat." I'm using this example to demonstrate how easy it is to take from everyday life what we want in order to create our own metaphors, our own meaning and purpose, in order to construct our very own reality. I'm using this story within a story to point out that in this club, we are striving to be the author rather than the middle-aged man. The author is open to new ideas, whereas the man, as it turns out, just wants to bed the woman, which was never going to happen. The author uses the boat to write about her own marriage. We are free to use the boat for our own purposes, or we can turn it into something else. We are free to interpret other people's words as we wish. We are free to take other people's words and run with them. You can come to this club and wear as many hats as you wish. You can take information and use it purely for yourself, or you can use it when you're dealing with your parents, say, or partners. We can apply this information to work or play, and we can do all of this effortlessly because of this amazing brain we have that can function on so many different levels. But as I'm saying this, I realize I'm getting ahead of myself. For if, dear listener, you are so used to being in a hostile world that the very notion of having the freedom to even contemplate setting about a nurturing space might be a bit of a mind detonator, then maybe tiny transitional steps are the order of the day. Let's bring back the character, maybe girlfriend, from our last episode to see if she can help with this one. This particular passage from the ultra-hostile Northern Irish world of Anna Burns's Milkman is where our narrator has a shocking revelation when she is taken to see something out of the ordinary. So I nodded at the sunset, at this horizon, which made no sense, all the while taken up with these contradictory sentiments, with maybe boyfriend beside me, with all these odd people also gazing upon the sunset around me. And it was at that moment, just as I was thinking, what the fuck are they, that something out there, or something in me, then changed. It fell into place because now, instead of blue, blue, and more blue, the official blue everyone understands and thought was up there, the truth hit my senses. It became clear as I gazed that there was no blue out there at all. For the first time, I saw colours. Maybe girlfriend then sees another set, 2 in a week, which proper freaks her out. And now we get the voice of her French teacher trying to help a whole classroom of similarly disturbed and deprived brains in a God-forsaken environment. "Don't worry," teacher then said. "Your unease, even your temporary unhingement, dear students, in the face of this sunset, is encouraging. It can only mean progress. It can only mean enlightenment. Please don't think you have betrayed or ruined yourself." Is this the aim of our club? To be able to see colour without freaking out? At this very moment in time, the Self-Detective Club has only a few people who are invested in it, so naturally enough, they will be the ones to have a voice. But if more people get up to speed and decide they too are invested, I trust that they will want to have a voice and to shape the space and find new ways of keeping the nurturing vibe fresh and relevant. We have a contact point for thoughts and suggestions. podcast@selfdetective.net. Use it, please do. Now, when you're ready, imagine this. What would it be like to be completely without debt? How cool would it be, in company, to be without feeling indebted to gratitude? How wonderful to accept a gift from someone without it ending up as an imbalance, a sense that something is now owed. Instead of being forever in debt to your parents for bringing you into the world, a world created by something that in turn needs some kind of recognition and payback, if your beliefs are religiously inclined. Instead, could there be a place that is just neutral? That's neither a deficit or a surplus? A place that is completely debt-free? A place that is freeing? A place that could be called freedom? A place where you can be active or inactive without any consequence? Could the Self-Detective Club be such a place, or aspire to be? Could you come here unconditionally? The only thing you need to remember is to be nice to yourself and others. Could you come here and take without having to give back unless you wanted to? Could you drop in and out of this space without the need to feel duty-bound either to yourself or to those who have created this space? I'm thinking here of voluntary participation. You come here when you want to, and you stay away when you don't. Sure, there will be calls to action every now and then, but there is no expectation for you to respond. And there's more where that came from. How about, in this club, we don't need to have flags, nationalities, or borders. After all, they only create aliens when clearly no human is alien to one another. We don't need to have any shoulds, musts, or oughts either. We can be a subjugation-free zone. Imagine that. Well, you don't need to imagine it. Let's do it. Let's be it. We don't need representatives. We have our own voices. We don't need to create winners and losers by voting if we don't want to. All our decisions can be made consensually. Consensus. Isn't that just such a fab word to throw into the nurture pot? Consensus. Like-mindedness. Harmony. Consensual. Something made by consent. Consent. The agreement to make something happen. In the TV adaptation of Normal People by Sally Rooney, there is a scene where, knowing that this is the very first sexual encounter for one person, the other person initiates a slow, consensual intimacy that involves asking the other if they are okay, and pretty much checking in real time that this mutual experience remains a good experience rather than a bad one, that the needs of both parties are being met. This was like the first time I'd ever witnessed such a thing on screen. It made me cry. It was so thoughtfully choreographed, if that doesn't sound creepy creeps. It was truly heartwarming. So why was this so unique, so far removed from the usual wham bam thank you ma'am of there being no need to have foreplay because, you know, the actor is such a dish, even though they're old enough to be the other person's grandparent? Why am I saying this? Consent. Not just imperative in the bedroom, but everywhere. And if we don't mention it or be aware of it whenever we interact with others, we can have problems. So, can we keep this in mind, dear listener? I'm going to start to wind down now on part 1 of this episode, and then we can wait to see what happens in part 2 when it finally arrives. Before I go, here's a few other ideas for us to contemplate, all of which can be expanded upon at a later date if we so wish. Awareness. Those who do not move do not notice their chains. Rosa Luxemburg. I'm throwing it out there that the more awareness we have, the more we can start to differentiate between what is hostile and what is nurturing. People, places, cultures, our own internal world can all at various times in our day-to-day lives, as well as our lives in general, provide wellness or unwellness. So can we actively seek out the good bits, the good life? Not according to Socrates, but according to ourselves. Focus. I'm suggesting that a nurturing culture is a lot easier than you might think, so long as you have the goodwill to back it up, along with the repetitive nature of focus. No room for racism, taking the knee, Black History Month, on and on and on, unrelenting, because if we stop, we forget. I don't know about you, but I can so vividly imagine a school eradicating bullying from pupils and staff alike simply by focusing on it. And not through force or punishment either, but through a nurturing culture. By making a big deal of it. By making bullying so unacceptable that it would be utterly unthinkable to commit such an act. To betray yourself, your peers, and the school as a whole. The shame of it. If a music venue wanted people to stop talking during live music, they make it culturally known. They signpost this intention to all and sundry, on walls, on tickets, public announcements. Question time. How can anyone have a musical epiphany if you are talking? How can you have a musical epiphany if you are talking? I'm talking about taking problems, whatever they may be, from out of the shadows, out of the dusty policy guidebook, and place them directly into the sunlight, the spotlight, where everyone can see them up close. Encourage everyone to stand up to it, to call it out, rather than make it someone else's responsibility, someone else's problem. And so it goes on. In the UK, as with other countries, there are small musical festivals where there can be up to 20,000 people attending, the size of a small city. Often in these festivals, apart from some security at the stages and a few volunteer stewards, there is no authority, and yet there is very, very little hostilities. Or, to turn this upside down, there is a lot of goodwill and a lot of kindly interactions, which I guess is why people keep going back to them. Yes, I know that there are larger, more hedonistic festivals where drugs and alcohol and antisocial behaviors play a bigger part. I'm staying with the smaller, more human-sized ones. I don't know what you make of this, but I have a festival loo theory based on observations from the past 20 years. So, briefly, while portaloos have improved over time, they can still become pretty scuzzy day by day as the waste fills up and the overall cleanliness declines. I've found, anecdotally, that at the beginning of a festival, people are fine when departing their cubicle. They're fine to make eye contact with those waiting to take their place, often holding the toilet door to assist them. This is in marked contrast to the final day, when most people seem to not want to associate themselves with the site they've just vacated and tend to march, eyes down, directly away from the bogshed. Could this be seen as a microcosm of society? If you have people coming together invested and passionate about something, they will make sure it's as good as it can be, until there comes a natural tipping point when the party's over, when your mind is now on other things, and since everything is temporary, we move away towards that next thing? Can the Self-Detective Club be set up in the same way? Can we have passion and kindliness so long as we are invested in it? Just a thought. Until next time, I'll leave the outro to the Samphires.